I was one step from the study door when I heard my father's voice. Not angry, just certain. Your sister, she's not getting a single thing. She's out. I stopped mid-step. The hallway felt colder than it had a second ago. The kind of cold that doesn't come from air conditioning, but from knowing something can never be undone. I should have walked in. I should have said something, but I didn't. From the crack in the door, I saw my dad, Richard Morgan, leaning back in his office chair, talking to my younger sister, Melissa. She nodded once, didn't speak. My mother, Janice, stood behind them, arms crossed, and she smiled. Not the kind of smile you give when something's funny. No, this was different. Tight-lipped, controlled. The kind of smile that says, it worked. I don't remember backing away. I just know I didn't go into that room. I didn't ask questions. I didn't beg. I walked right past my old bedroom into the guest room I'd been staying in and opened my laptop. I moved every cent I had savings, investment accounts, even the emergency cash, into a private fund they didn't know existed. One I'd opened years ago on a gut feeling I never quite understood. What they didn't know was I knew about the second trust. The one my grandmother, Margaret Morgan, had created just before she died. The one she never told them about. Only me. It had just matured, and it wasn't small. I didn't cry that night. I didn't scream or throw anything. I just sat there, staring at the glow of the transfer confirmation, and realized that something had shifted. I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was the one they didn't think could win. And that was going to be their second mistake. It didn't start with that conversation. Looking back, I think they were erasing me long before they said it out loud. It was in the Christmas photo Mom sent out last year, the one she captioned, Morgan Family, full of love. I wasn't in it. I had flown in 2 days before, baked 3 pies, and wrapped gifts until my fingers cramped. But when I asked about the photo, she said, "Oh honey, we took it while you were running errands." Just slipped my mind. I told myself it didn't matter. Then came the subtle shifts. Dad, always pragmatic, always controlling, began saying things like, "You're too emotional to handle estate business." Or, "This stuff needs a rational head." Claire, my younger sister by 4 years, stopped replying to messages unless she needed something, a document, a favor, a loan. Her tone always breezy, like we were still close. But the closeness was hollow. And Chase, our cousin, but raised almost like a brother, started calling me the martyr. Said it with a smile, but I could feel the sharpness underneath. Still, I kept showing up. I was there when Grandma fell for the 3rd time. I was there in the hospice room, reading to her with a cracked voice and tired eyes. I gave up my consulting job to help Dad through his surgery last spring. I paid the electric bill when Melissa maxed out her cards. Covered for Chase when his gambling debt spiraled again. They never said thank you. They just let me, like it was expected. And maybe that's where I went wrong. I mistook being needed for being wanted. The real cut came the night I heard the second conversation, the one no one knew I overheard. Dad's study door was cracked, and his voice carried like it always did when he thought no one else was around. "Don't tell her about the account," he said. "We'll say it was closed. Split it between us. Claire's out. She's been a burden long enough." Burden. That word stayed with me. It echoed louder than any door slam or shouted insult could have because it meant everything I'd done, the caretaking, the late nights, the silence, hadn't earned me a place. It had made me disposable. I stood in that hallway, just breathing. Not because I was afraid, but because a part of me was breaking, the part that still wanted to believe this was all a misunderstanding. That maybe grief had changed them. But it wasn't grief. It was greed. And they weren't hiding it anymore. I didn't sleep that night, not because of fear or even anger, but because I kept hearing her voice, soft, raspy, and low from the hospital bed. "One day, they'll turn on you. When they do, open the bottom drawer." At the time, I thought she meant something sentimental, a keepsake, maybe a letter. But now I understood. She had seen this coming. She had seen them clearly, even when I still gave them the benefit of the doubt. The drawer was in her old bedroom, mahogany, top left corner of her writing desk, the one no one had touched since the funeral. I opened it slowly, half expecting it to be empty. But it wasn't. Inside was a small flash drive, a folded letter in her unmistakable cursive, and a cream-colored envelope sealed with a notary stamp. My hands shook as I opened the letter. Claire, if you're reading this, they've already made their move. Blood doesn't make them worthy. Love doesn't make them loyal. Take what's yours and don't apologize, Grandma. It was only 4 lines, but it landed like thunder. I read it again. Then again. I wasn't crying, not yet, but I felt something shift. Not sadness, not even rage. Conviction. The envelope contained an amended version of her will, signed, witnessed, and notarized 2 weeks before she passed. I read every word slowly, carefully. It gave me 51% control of the family business, power of attorney over Dad's personal trust, 2 rental properties in Oregon, and a locked investment account worth just over $1.2 million. She hadn't split things evenly. She hadn't tried to please everyone. She had chosen me, not because I was better, but because I had stayed, because I had listened, because I had wiped her mouth and held her hand when no one else would. She hadn't left me power. She had left me proof that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't imagining the distance or the silence or the smirks across the table, that somewhere in the middle of their plotting, she had drawn a line and placed me on the side of the truth. I sat with it for a long time, not moving, just holding that envelope like it might vanish if I blinked. They wanted me gone. Fine, let them throw the match. I would burn their entire plan to ash. I came down to the kitchen the next morning like nothing had changed. Dad, Richard, sat at the head of the table, flipping through financial reports. Melissa was scrolling on her phone, chewing toast like it mattered. Mom, Janice, stood by the sink, humming softly as she stirred her tea, the same tune she always used when she thought she'd won. Morning, I said. Dad didn't look up. We're busy, Claire. Can you give us a minute? I smiled. Cool. Practiced. Sure. Just wanted to say congrats. That got his attention. He looked up, pen in hand, eyebrows drawn. On what? I set the envelope down on the table. On handing me everything. Mom's hand jerked. The tea spilled across the counter. She didn't move to wipe it, just stood there staring at me. What are you talking about? She asked. I opened the envelope, took out the amended will, laid it flat between the butter dish and Dad's black coffee. Melissa stopped scrolling. Dad stood slowly, reading the top line. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. That's not, Mom started. Not real. I said calmly. Signed, notarized, witnessed. I turned to Dad. You remember Beverly? Grandma's friend from her church group. She co-signed 2 weeks before Grandma passed. No one spoke. Guess she didn't trust the rest of you. Dad growled, not loud, but deep. You stole that. No, I said, voice steady. I earned it. The silence stretched, thick, ugly. I didn't feel it. I let them sit with it. The loss, the shock, the moment they realized the rules had changed. You thought I'd just go quietly, I said. Let you erase me with a smile and a folded napkin at Thanksgiving. But you underestimated me. Dad stepped forward, finger raised. You listened to me. No, I said, louder now, but still calm. You listen. The account you tried to hide? Frozen. I had the bank investigated the moment I heard your little speech last night. Melissa's face went pale. What the hell is happening? She asked. I looked at her. Your inheritance, I said, just slipped through your fingers. Mom's lip trembled. This is your family. No, I said, this is a lesson. Then I turned and walked out. Not running, not hiding, just claiming the ground they never thought I'd stand on. The office still smelled like my father, old leather, strong coffee, and the faint bitterness of cologne that overstayed its welcome. I hadn't stepped into the boardroom since I was 22, the last time I offered to help with a company retreat and was told to let the real professionals handle it. But that Monday morning, I walked in through the front door, past the receptionist who blinked twice before recognizing me and kept walking straight into the meeting. Dad's partners were already seated. Thomas, Marianne, a few new faces. Chase was there too, in a tailored blazer and that same cocky lean he always used when he thought he had the upper hand. He didn't look up. I walked to the head of the table and sat down. His head snapped toward me like it had been pulled by a wire. You don't belong here, he muttered. I slid the ownership documents across the table. According to this, I belong exactly here. They read quietly, carefully. Thomas cleared his throat. We weren't made aware of this change in leadership, he said. I met his eyes. You are now. The room was still, absorbing it, when the door flew open and Dad stormed in, 10 minutes late and breathing hard. His eyes scanned the table and landed on me. He stopped mid-step. This is a hostile takeover, he snapped. No, I said, this is a correction. He marched toward the table and slapped his hand against the wood. You don't have the experience. I have the authority, I said. And starting today, every transaction over $10,000 goes through me. Chase's face turned crimson. You think you're going to run this place better than Dad? I looked at him. Really looked. Considering you've been using company funds to pay off your poker debts? Yes. I think I've got a decent shot. There was a sharp intake of breath from the end of the table. One board member started whispering to another. A phone appeared in someone's lap. Dad didn't move. He just sank into his chair like the air had been pulled from the room. This isn't just about power, I said. It's about transparency. Something this company hasn't seen since Grandma stepped down. Thomas nodded, slow. She always said you were the one who asked the real questions. I gave him a tight smile. She taught me well. When the meeting ended, most left quickly, heads down, feet fast. But Dad stayed behind, followed me into the hallway. You're really doing this? He asked. You already did, I said. When you decided I was disposable. He looked tired in a way I had never seen. Not angry, not dangerous, just hollow. You'll regret this. I paused, hand on the door to my office. No, Dad. I regretted trusting you. This is the cure. That afternoon, I called the audit team. We started with accounts tied to Chase, then looped in Dad's shell companies, and finally Mom's consulting contracts. The files piled up. Clean names, dirty money. And for the first time in years, I felt something settle in me. Not satisfaction, not revenge, clarity. The audit reports came in faster than I expected and uglier than I hoped. Line after line of transfers labeled consulting routed to Chase's personal Venmo. Equipment rentals that didn't exist. Offshore payments under Dad's LLC. A 6-figure account titled Golden Sun Ventures, which linked directly to my mother's name. It wasn't just mismanagement. It was intentional, coordinated. They hadn't just tried to cut me out. They were bleeding the company dry. I sat at my desk long after the office emptied, fingers cold against the keyboard, scrolling through page after page of financial rot disguised as strategy. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was premeditated theft. I gathered the documents and sent them to the legal team with a one-line subject: proceed. That evening, Chase showed up at the office, uninvited. His shirt was wrinkled. He hadn't shaved. He looked like the walls were folding in. You're going to ruin our lives, he spat. I didn't look up from my screen. You did that yourselves. I'm just holding up the mirror. He leaned forward, voice shaking. You think this makes you some kind of hero? You're destroying your own family. I stood, slow, calm. Family doesn't build empires on lies. Family doesn't erase you and call it loyalty. And family doesn't smile while telling your sister to cut you out. His face drained of color. He opened his mouth to speak. Yeah, I said. I heard that conversation. Every word. He tried to spin it, minimize it. He always had a story, but I cut him off. You forged Grandma's signature on a withdrawal slip. That's a felony. He went quiet. I gave you a chance to walk away clean, I said. You stayed. Now you deal with the fallout. His voice cracked. You don't have to do this. I don't have to, I said. I want to. He left without another word. Later that night, my attorney called. We're ready to file criminal charges. Do you want to press forward? I walked to the window, looked out at the company sign, once a symbol of pride, now just a name carved over decades of quiet deceit. Yes, I said. No settlements, no silence. We do it by the book. I want the truth in ink. By sunrise, the company website had a new leadership tab. My name, my photo, my mission. Underneath, a quote from Grandma. If you can't trust the foundation, tear it out and start again. And that's what I was doing. Tearing out the rot. Brick by brick, name by name. The text came just after noon. 1 hour. No lawyers. You owe me that much. I didn't owe her anything, but I said yes. We met at the old church garden behind St. Mary's, the one Grandma used to sit in when she could still walk. The same place Mom pretended to tend roses while taking calls from the estate lawyer she swore she barely knew. She was already sitting when I arrived. White blouse, clean lines, too calm. She looked like someone preparing for a press conference, not a conversation with her daughter. I didn't sit. I have to hand it to you, she said. I underestimated you. You always did, I said. She smiled faintly, eyes still on the chapel. You weren't trying to protect Grandma. You were trying to destroy me. No, I said. You did that to yourself. She turned to me fully then. Her face didn't crack. Not yet. I kept this family running, she said, sharper now. I made sure your father didn't lose everything after his third failed investment. I patched holes. I handled Chase and you. I didn't flinch. I was the only one not lying, I said. She stood slowly, brushed off her skirt like she just finished a garden chore. You're going to win, she said. We both know that. She stepped closer. But what happens after you do? You think you'll feel peace? You think Grandma wanted this circus? I looked at her, really looked, and saw the woman I used to love trying to rearrange her face into something soft, but it didn't fit anymore. No, I said. But she would have wanted the truth. And she'd be proud that I finally stopped apologizing for existing. For a moment, just one flicker, her mouth tensed, not in anger, but something closer to grief. Then it passed. She leaned in, voice barely above a whisper. Everything crumbles, Claire. Even the truth. Just wait. I didn't answer. Didn't stay to ask what she meant. I turned and walked away before she could twist it into a warning or a threat or a plea. I didn't need any more of her endings. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not in temperature. The air itself felt different. Tense still, like even the walls were waiting to hear what couldn't be unsaid. Mom, Dad, and Melissa sat in a row. 3 faces, 3 masks, 3 ghosts of a family I used to believe in. When my name was called, I stood, walked forward, raised my hand, swore my truth. I spoke without shaking. Not because I wasn't afraid, but because fear no longer controlled me. I'd lived in the silence they built. Now I would speak in a room they couldn't shut. I laid out the timeline, the account transfers, the forged withdrawals, the LLCs Dad created under false names, the consulting contracts paid to Mom's shell company, the bank alerts I'd triggered the moment I heard them say I was out. Then I paused. Before she died, I said, my grandmother left me something else. I pulled out the flash drive and handed it to the bailiff. The sound system clicked. The courtroom waited. Then came the voice, faint but steady, worn by time but unmistakable. Claire, if they try to shut you out, don't let them. You are this family's future. Not their version of it. Yours. No one moved. No one spoke. Not even Dad. When it was Mom's turn, she rose like she always did at church. Slow, graceful, calculated. We weren't trying to hurt her, she said. We were trying to protect her. She's always been sensitive. I laughed out loud in front of the judge. Not out of disrespect, out of clarity. Is that what you call erasing someone now? Sensitivity. The judge didn't flinch. Melissa looked down. Dad kept his eyes on the floor. By the time the testimony ended, the money barely mattered. This wasn't about inheritance anymore. It was about dignity, about memory, about being seen. The gavel dropped. Final, full control of the estate remained with me. Melissa was ordered to pay restitution for unauthorized use of company funds. My parents were permanently removed from all fiduciary roles tied to the trust of the company and the family assets. It was official. It was public. It was irreversible. Outside, reporters waited like birds sensing blood. Microphones, cameras, questions I wouldn't answer. I walked past them, straight, quiet. I didn't owe them my outrage. Back at the lake house, I opened Grandma's journal to the page I had marked months ago. She had written, sometimes blood must be drained for a body to heal. Families are no different. I sat on the porch until the sun disappeared behind the trees. The air smelled like pine and memory. They had tried to bury me, and in doing so, they handed me the shovel. But I didn't dig a grave. I built a foundation. By Monday morning, the transition was complete. The deeds, the titles, the names on the papers, all of it mine. The lake house sat quiet in the haze of early autumn. Yellow leaves drifted down the front steps like someone had let go too gently. Inside, the air felt different, not empty, but unoccupied, like it had been waiting. The business bore my signature now. The accounts were in my name. The legacy they tried to erase was, ironically, held together by the one person they tried to cast out. I didn't host a celebration. I didn't call anyone. I opened Grandma's old cedar chest, placed the amended will beside her journal, and closed the lid. No speeches, no final words, just the quiet act of returning something to where it belonged. That night, I left the windows open. I wasn't afraid anymore. There were no voices behind walls, no footsteps down the hall, just the soft wind off the lake and the memory of someone who believed in me before I believed in myself. They had tried to bury me. They called me weak, emotional, a burden. But what they didn't know was every time they erased me, they sharpened me. Every silence they forced became a sentence I would one day speak aloud. And when they finally handed me the shovel, the one they thought I'd use to disappear quietly, I didn't dig a grave. I built something stronger. Now the house bears my name. The business wears my values, and I sleep with the windows open. Not because I've forgiven them. Not because I've forgotten.